All right, as we continue our special edition of Hannity, our video of the day tonight is amazing. Check out this surveillance video from last month. It's out of Columbus, Ohio. It shows a Good Samaritan putting himself at risk to stop an armed suspect fleeing police. Now, the Good Samaritan, simply known as Bill, with cane in hand, trips the suspect as he was getting away. Officers thank Bill for his help arresting the man. Police say the 18-year-old suspect was armed with a 9mm Glock pistol with an extended clip. Wow, good job. People, you know what? We see the worst in people and sometimes the best. There you go. That's the best. All right, that's all the time we have left this evening. We will always be fair and balanced. We will have a lot more on these huge breaking developments on Monday. Have a great weekend. Let not your heart be troubled. The Ingram Angle is next. We'll see you back here Monday.
Good evening from Washington. I'm Laura Ingram, and this is the Ingram Angle. The NRA gives the president a rock star reception at its annual meeting. And in tonight's angle, Sarah Sanders versus an out-of-control press. And another college mascot controversy. This one takes the cake. You want to stick around for Raymond Arroyo's Friday Folly segment. But first, a federal judge just unloads on Bob Mueller's legal team, suggesting that they're lying and only out to get Trump. Does that sound familiar? District Judge T.S. Ellis is hearing the case against former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort in the Eastern District of Virginia. And in court today, he blasted the special counsel's legal team, questioning their motives and even their honesty. Ellis told prosecutors, "You don't really care about Mr. Manafort. You really care about what information Mr. Manafort can give you to lead you to Mr. Trump and an impeachment or whatever." The judge demanded to see the so-called scope memo outlining the range of Mueller's Russia probe. And when prosecutors objected it is unrelated material, Ellis retorted, "I'll be the judge of that." And then he added, "We don't want anyone in this country with unfettered power. It's unlikely you're going to persuade me the special prosecutor has the power to do anything he or she wants. The American people feel pretty strongly that no one has unfettered power." Well, a delighted President Trump broke news of the hearing to the NRA annual meeting in Dallas this afternoon.
A highly respected judge in Virginia made statements. It says, Wall Street Journal, it says, "Judge questions Mueller's authority to prosecute Manafort." Judge T.S. Ellis, who is really something very special, I hear from many standpoints, he's a respected person, suggested the charges before the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia were just part of the Mueller team's designs to pressure Mr. Manafort into giving up information on President Donald Trump or others in the campaign. I've been saying that for a long time. It's a witch hunt.
Well, let's review these developments with House Intel Committee Chairman Devin Nunes. We have a lot to talk about with him. Chairman Nunes, it's good to see you. T.S. Ellis, I know very well. He is a senior judge in the Eastern District of Virginia. I remember a long time ago I interviewed with him. I think I even argued a case before him at one point. Very well respected, appointed by President Reagan back in 1987. But he was brutal on the counsel who was arguing the case, Michael Dreeben, who is the basically a deputy solicitor general who's now in the Mueller office. What were your thoughts on his comments about how this is really outside the scope of the Mueller authority?
I was astonished by the comments the judge made today, although it's not surprising. Everything in this case, Laura, has just gone off the rails. There's not a day that goes by that something new, crazy, doesn't break. You know, finally, just today, we were able to get the 2 pages that we needed, that we now know that Comey and McCabe did in fact say that General Flynn, the agents that interviewed General Flynn didn't think he was lying. Now, we listened to Mr. Comey over the last 3 weeks run around saying just the opposite. So you have the judge saying that they're lying, that the Mueller team's lying. You now have the case where we now know that Mr. Comey has been lying out there publicly. This continues to just, I think, it's bewildering, quite frankly.
Now, Congressman, Jim Comey basically decided to override the agents, including Peter Strzok, who, we focus on Strzok's texts with Lisa Page, and maybe he has an animus against President Trump. But I believe, unless I'm wrong, I believe Peter Strzok was one of the agents who interviewed Mike Flynn. And we had heard this from some time, now confirmed that Mike Flynn didn't lie. At least it was up to them, meaning poor Mike Flynn, they had twisted the screws on him to plead guilty to a false statement in order to, you know, like a lot of people do, save their family, save their whatever money they have left. And meanwhile, Comey's going around saying, "Oh no, he lied," and this is, you know, it's wild. Why would he override the agent? That's my question.
Well, look, this isn't new news to us on the Intelligence Committee. This has been the problem of all these issues that they keep classified from the American people. So we knew this very shortly after the interview took place. The interview where the FBI agents went into the White House and interviewed Mr. Flynn. Shortly after that, Mr. Comey comes and briefs us. That's on the record. I know he also briefed other committees. So on the record, we knew what Mr. Comey said. We had the transcripts. We have been fighting with the Department of Justice and the FBI for 6 weeks to release this information to the American people. We finally have it tonight, late on a Friday night. This is totally unacceptable. You have the judge from this morning. This is just continued ridiculous behavior. It's like they just want to keep digging, and the American people are beginning to understand that the Department of Justice and the FBI have major problems. I have no idea how they can investigate themselves, but evidently they continue to believe they can. But they have so many more documents that they have to provide to us that we needed like yesterday, and I hate to have to continue to come out publicly and talk about this, that we are still missing documents
let me just remind everybody. Yeah, let's remind everyone. A few weeks ago, you were on the show. I believe it was a Friday night, if my memory serves me correct. Maybe it was a Thursday night, and you essentially threatened Rod Rosenstein with contempt of Congress or impeachment if the underlying document, the computer document that authorized the probe of the spying on Carter Page, surveillance on Carter Page, wasn't released. He did finally then release that, Congressman Nunes. However, now you're getting slammed in response by CNN and now others that you ask for these documents, and then you, Devin Nunes, have a staffer read them. You don't read them. So how serious are you? You just want to help the president. You're not even reading the documents. What about that CNN report that came out today?
Yeah, so look, I enjoy being attacked. The first thing I will tell you is whatever CNN and the New York Times write or talk about, I don't read their information, I will tell you that. We're not going to get into the specifics about how we conduct our investigation, but I will tell you, Laura, and I've said this numerous times on your show and others, is that Mr. Gowdy is our lead investigator. Mr. Gowdy is the one who reviews all the initial documents with our investigators. I'm not going to get into the processes that we use, but as the chairman of the committee, when they need documents, they come to me. We use the power that we have vested in us by the Constitution to try to force the Department of Justice and the FBI to comply with these document requests.
I know, but you can see the criticism, Congressman. I'm trying to help you. Yeah, I'm trying to help our viewers understand this, though. When they come after you and say, Nunes is getting these documents, I think a lot of people want you to have these documents, then you don't read them, it opens you up to criticism. So, I mean, I don't understand why it compromises the investigation for you to say, I read the documents that are necessary to do this investigation, and I consult with my staff on the, on the primary documents, but I read them. So I don't understand why your reluctance to say whether you read them or don't read them. I don't get that.
Well, look, this is, first of all, what they're talking about there in that is that it's a page and a half. What specifically we were looking for in that, as you may remember, is we're investigating the State Department. We are looking for any official intelligence that came across through the Five Eyes channels. That's what we were looking for. That was not in the document. So at this point, we have other lines of inquiry that we're going down. We have a subpoena out there, and so this is why we can play process games all the time, but all day long. But at the end of the day here, we continue to have our investigation blocked. We continue to have to deal with the disinformation campaigns.
Well, and this is what the left always does. Just so, I mean, everyone who watches this show understands because they've done it to me. They've tried to. when you're effective and when you're holding people accountable, and if you're conservative or if you've ever supported the president, you are a target. And so that's why, you know, all the articles floating around about you and Paul Ryan should take you off the committee. That was a couple of weeks ago. It's predictable. I want to read for you a comment by Eric Lichtblau about what's happened to the FBI. He said, many view Trump's attacks as self-serving. He's called the renowned agency an embarrassment to our country and its investigations of his business and political dealings as a witch hunt. But as much as the Bureau's roughly 14,000 special agents might like to tune out the news, internal and external reports have found lapses throughout the agency, and longtime observers looking past the partisan haze see a troubling picture. Something really is wrong at the FBI. Now, that's not Devin Nunes saying that. That is Lichtblau saying it.
Yeah, this is what I've actually conveyed this to Director Wray. He has a tough job to do. He needs to clean the place up. I've said this also publicly. We don't see a systemic problem out in the field with field agents or with people overseas that are doing very difficult work trying to track down terrorists and other bad guys. Where we do see a problem is in Washington, D.C. Now, to Director Wray's credit, you have seen many of the Comey-era people have been excused. That's a good sign.
Good.
What would be even better is if Director Wray made sure that we get this information that we need in a timely manner.
Congressman, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. And here with reaction are two esteemed attorneys. Scott Bolden joins us from Las Vegas, along with Alan Dershowitz in New York. He's the author of the new book, Trumped Up: How the Criminalization of Political Differences Endangers Democracy. Great to see both of you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Professor Dershowitz, Judge Ellis, you know him well. I know him well from a long time ago when I was a litigator. He's an incredibly talented judge. He pretty much calls balls and strikes. 77 years old, senior judge on the Eastern District. He just laid into the special counsel's office. He's cantankerous. He's known for that, too. But he laid into him. There was one quote that I especially want to raise here. He said, I don't see what relationship this indictment has against Manafort with anything the special counsel is authorized to investigate. It's unlikely you're going to persuade me the special counsel has this unfettered power to do whatever he wants.
Look, every criminal lawyer I know, every experienced lawyer has known from the beginning what's going on. They're going after people like Manafort and Flynn and Cohen, not because they have any interest in any of them. They just want to flip them. They want to make them not only sing, but as the judge put it in his statement, maybe even make them compose. You know, I think I came up with that phrase, composing instead of singing. The judge was just saying what we all have known right from the beginning. The only difference between this judge and other judges is this judge is completely and totally honest. He calls it the way he sees it. He's absolutely right. This is what's been going on. The amazing thing is that he called them on it. He said to prosecutors, essentially, you can't do that if you're a special counsel. You have to go after directly the evidence that's within your mandate. You can't be finding people, creating or exaggerating or coming up with crimes, not in order to get those people, but in order to squeeze them and get them to sing and compose. It's about time a judge honestly looked at the situation and assessed it. You and I have been talking about this now for months. We shouldn't be surprised, but it's surprising that and refreshing that a federal judge would say that. It also vindicates one other point I made. Why did Mueller take this case out of Virginia and try to put it in Washington, D.C.? Because he knows that he would get more positive judges, more positive jurors in the District of Columbia than he would get in Virginia. In Virginia, he's going to get judges like this who are straight. In D.C., he's going to get judges and jurors who are much, much more anti-Trump. And so clearly that was judge shopping, jury shopping. When I said that, I was called a racist. I was condemned. Congressmen condemn me. Professors condemn me. But I think this opinion vindicates what I've been saying for a long, long time.
Scott, he has. We do have another aspect of the case that's still in D.C. And I think we might have just lost Scott there. That is in D.C. And,
right.
and we'll get him back. Let me know. And it's Amy Berman Jackson, Professor Dershowitz, who is a Obama appointee. And so she still hasn't ruled on the motion to dismiss. But these banking transactions go back to 2004 and 2007. And so Dreeben tries to argue today saying, well, no, this is within the scope of the investigation. And he said, I'll be the judge of that. He's like, I don't think so. I'll be the judge of that. So 2004, 2007, an investigation that began in 2014, a professor was somehow just looped into the Mueller investigation. It is ridiculous. It's so patently obvious from the very beginning. You were way ahead of the curve on it.
Well, no, and it's so important because what they're doing to these people like Manafort and Flynn and Cohen could happen to any of us. If we happen to be collateral damage, if you know somebody who they're going after, they're going to find something on you, they're going to squeeze you. This is something that has plagued the American justice system for many decades. Look, if they do it to get the mafia, maybe it's understandable. If they do it to get terrorists, maybe it's understandable. But to do it to get an elected president of the United States, somebody who I voted against, but who's the elected president of the United States, to use that tactic, the mafia terrorist tactic of squeezing people and making them testify and making them sing and making them compose, endangers the civil liberties of all Americans.
Let's look at what President Trump said today after he heard about the continuing conversation about whether he should speak to a grand jury or be interviewed by Mueller. He made these comments.
I would love to speak. I would love to go. Nothing I want to do more because we did nothing wrong. I have to find that we're going to be treated fairly because everybody sees it now, and it is a pure witch hunt. If I thought it was fair, I would override my lawyers.
You know, it's so important. Everybody should read my article in today's USA Today because I give advice to the president. I never give it to him directly, but I give it to him through the media. It would be a terrible mistake for him to voluntarily testify unless he has no choice. No prosecutor has ever tried to get somebody to speak to him in order to help that person. You have the person speak to you in order to spring a perjury trap or have them fill gaps. And I have never in 50 years of practice had one of my clients speak to a prosecutor or voluntarily appear in front of a grand jury. He may have to. They may subpoena him, but then he has legal resources. He can fight the subpoena on the grounds that this judge has now apparently ruled, saying that many of the questions are beyond the scope of the mandate of the special counsel. Others are within the privilege of a president not to have to respond and answer why he pardoned, why he fired, why he did this, why he did that. Those are not appropriate questions. So I think there are challenges the president can level at a subpoena, but the one thing he shouldn't do is volunteer to sit down and talk to a prosecutor.
No
good ever comes of that.
No, I don't care how people think they're so smart. And Alan, you and I have been around this with witnesses. The more prominent the witness, the more problems in a deposition because they don't want to hear your advice. They don't want to be coached. They don't want to do moot courting. They want to go and I can handle it. And all of a sudden you're like,
Look at Bill Clinton. Look at Bill Clinton. He got impeached because his lawyer gave him the advice to go and testify about his sex life at a deposition. And he could have settled the case and not testified, but he didn't do that. In that case, he took the advice of his lawyer. He didn't take the advice I gave him on Geraldo on this network not to testify. He made the mistake. And I don't think that President Trump is going to make the mistake of testifying unless he can do it in a controlled setting, a few hours with his lawyer present, limited questions about limited subjects, perhaps written answers. You know, if I were the president's lawyer, I'd take advantage of these 40-something questions, and I'd respond to them in writing and say to the American public, see, I'm not afraid to answer these questions. The only reason they want to now talk to me in person is they want to spring a perjury trap, and there's no justification for using the grand jury to do that.
It's crazy. It would be lunacy. Scott Bolden, we promise it was not a conspiracy to take down your satellite. I promise. I love having you on. You're one of my faves. Your reaction to what's happened today, we can go back to the district court judge in the Eastern District of Virginia, or you can hit any of the issues we've been talking about.
Well, I'm chomping at the bit. In regard to Judge Ellis, having appeared before him a handful of times in the last 5-10 years, I'm not surprised at Judge Ellis's comments, and he was equally hard on not only Mueller, but also equally hard on Manafort's lawyer and his legal team in regard to their head shaking and what have you. But he is a smart judge. I don't disagree with Professor Dershowitz in regard to how the process works, but they shake down drug dealers. They shake down street criminals and what have you. And so, but remember one thing, the judge didn't order. The judge didn't dismiss the indictment. He wants to see the whole memo because he may not trust Mueller, but he didn't render a decision. And so a lot of judges will press both sides and then in the end rule in favor of one that just based on the questioning, you may think that it's not, that he's leaning one way, but go the other way. So you got to keep that in mind. He did not issue an order. Secondly, the hearing today was, in my opinion, was really more about whether Mueller, okay, does he have jurisdiction or not? But then the other thing to notice is they had local counsel there from the Eastern District. And I think if anything, Judge Ellis is going to rule, if he goes this far, to say you can prosecute Manafort if you want, but you got to do it out of the Eastern District. And prosecutors always do forum shopping. Professor Dershowitz is absolutely right. Nobody wants to try a case in front of a D.C. juror because they tend to be more liberal. So they do reach out to Virginia if they can make the case. In regard to the rest of the issues, I'll tell you, the subpoenas and what the House investigators are doing, I'll be honest with you, they really ought to just let the Mueller investigation go forward. This whole corruption piece and picking and choosing and wanting these documents,
heaven forbid we have Congress hold the executive branch accountable, or the judge. I mean, they all supposed to keep each other honest. But you
it's
guys,
an ongoing investigation, though. You don't want them picking through ongoing investigations.
Well,
there's a lot of inconsistencies.
If the ongoing investigation is a travesty of justice, yes, we do want them to have an ongoing oversight responsibility, and that's how the founders saw it.
They'll be timing up for that at the conclusion of the investigation. You don't want to do it now.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're out of time. Thank you so much. And by the way, the press versus Sarah Sanders. Don't want to miss it. Tonight's Angle next. The press versus Sarah Sanders. That's the focus of tonight's Angle. Yesterday, the White House press briefing turned into a total feeding frenzy on spokeswoman Sarah Huckabee Sanders. The White House press corps is up in arms over the discrepancy between what she told the press previously, that the president had no knowledge of the payments made to Stormy Daniels, and what Rudy Giuliani revealed this week.
Why can't you just answer yes or no whether you were in the dark? I think it's a fairly simple question whether you just
I think it's a fairly simple answer that I've given you actually several times now. I gave you the best information that I had, and I'm going to continue to do my best to do that every single day.
Familiar Trump enemies join the anti-Sanders mob.
Have we ever gotten any truth out of them? Have they become to the point where not only has she lost the room, but they've become null and void?
But she's lying to the American public, and I think she needs to own that. Being ignorant or lying about it is just not an excuse.
What, is no comment a better option?
Well, I think not having these, why not have the briefings? If you're just going to lie, why bother?
This is how democracies die, slowly, right in front of us. Every single day, deception and lies become normal.
How dramatic, Mike Barnacle. This is how democracy dies. Oh, please. Then, under the headline, Why Sarah Sanders Should Quit, that's subtle, Chris Saleza writes on CNN.com, to the extent Sanders retained credibility among the White House press corps, she lost it with that answer. Admitting that you misled the press because the president misled you is tantamount to taking your credibility, pouring gasoline on it, and then setting it on fire. People just aren't good writers either. Well, these people are going to lecture us about credibility, the press? Consider the sources, as Brian Stetler might say. Or actually, didn't Howie Kurtz is the one who first said that. Are these reliable sources? For the most part, the White House press pool has become a pack of lupine, look it up, commentators, and their activists masquerading as journalists. Just listen to this.
She can be mad at what I say right now. Tough. No. I'm a reporter who's going to continue to ask questions, and there was nothing wrong with that question.
I wish I could install a BS meter inside the White House briefing room. Unfortunately, I think it would be going off all the time. And it would be hard to hear the press secretary attempt to tell the truth on a daily basis.
I actually really like Sarah. I think she's very resourceful. Like, she burns facts, and then she uses that ash to create a perfect smoky eye.
I literally had to turn my volume down on that last little bit. Well, the effort to demean and drive out Sanders and send her out packing from her job is part of the politics of personal destruction in this town, Washington, D.C. Anyone who works for the president is a target because the resistance wants to thin the ranks of those in the administration and advance a narrative of internal division and chaos. And at the same time, Sarah Sanders, she's in a very difficult position. And she has to look out for her own credibility as well. She was given scant information, and she repeated what she was told. And I think she did it in good faith. Frankly, all questions about this investigation should have been referred to the president's legal team, period. Trump needs a legal spokesperson, which he doesn't have at this point. Issues pertaining to an ongoing investigation should not be addressed by the White House press spokesperson. And despite the chiding by Jim Acosta, Sanders can't be brought on these legal discussions without, of course, becoming a witness herself. There's no privilege, and she should get herself in any type of legal pickle. She doesn't want that. So it is right for the legal team to have kept Sarah Sanders in the dark on these sensitive topics for her own protection. And this is why I've always warned against arguing your case in the press. It's tempting. I know you want to respond to everything, but it is too fraught with complications, and it's very easy to make a misstep. But that said, do not presume that these journalists are disengaged bystanders trying to keep it real. They have proudly, many of them, become hostile adversaries and the vanguard of the resistance. It's gotten so bad that reporters are now engaging in full-out intimidation of the White House press folks, even threats of physical violence. Again, here's April Ryan from yesterday.
Why didn't he talk to the White House press office about his impacting stellar statements about what was happening?
The White House press office wouldn't coordinate with the president's outside legal team on legal strategy.
You said yourself you were blindsided.
I actually didn't use that term.
Well, I said it, but you were blindsided from what you said.
Well, with all due respect, you actually don't know much about me in terms of what I feel and what I don't.
21 years to understand how this operates.
For Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the presidential spokesperson, the mouthpiece for the president of the United States, to say you don't know me in certain quarters in this nation, that starts a physical fight. I was very shocked. It was street. I will even go beyond that. It was gutter.
You know what gutter is? This Twitter exchange between April Ryan, a White House correspondent, and the former Democratic mayor of Baltimore, Stephanie Rawlins Blake. Blake writes, April Ryan unsolicited comeback suggestions for press secretary. I may not know you, but I damn sure know a lie, and you're wearing it, sis, all over your face. Oh, wait, is that smudge in your liner? Ryan then responds on Twitter, LOL, stop. Be more in the house. I know you have my back. That you don't know me stuff begins fistfights. She needs to know what she is saying. I am not the one. Blake then tweets back, I already took my earrings off and Vaseline in my purse. And you see the fist emoji there, and that's nice. Then April Ryan tweets back again. That's what I'm talking about. Take off that pretty ring to the, whatever she says, street fight, LOL. This is gutter. And a gutter in need of, well, a little editing, apparently, but it's Twitter. But can you imagine if someone on this network started taking off their earrings, can I take mine off, and said, take off your pretty ring and let's have a street fight with our political opponents? It would be instant Armageddon. You know what they would do. They would say we were what? Inciting violence. So they said the other night about Ben Shapiro, right? He was inciting violence because he tweeted something. But these journalists feel protected and free to threaten and slander members of the Trump administration with abandon. Their shared hatred of the president and those he represents unites them no matter what they do or say, and they think they can do it with impunity. Ms. Ryan has a history of these aggressive tactics. Remember, she was the journalist who hazed Sanders last Thanksgiving, suggesting that she didn't really bake that pecan pie. that she tweeted a picture out of. And she also regularly engaged in inflammatory encounters with the former press spokesman, Sean Spicer. I'm putting my earrings back in.
I appreciate your agenda here, but the reality is, oh, no, hold on. No, at some point, report the facts. The facts are that every single person who has been briefed on this subject has come away with the same conclusion. Republican, Democrat, so I'm sorry that disgusts you. You're shaking your head. It seems like you're hell-bent on trying to make sure that whatever image you want to tell about this White House stays.
Well, truth be told, April Ryan's been tough on some Democrat press spokesmen over the years as well. But here is the reality. Journalists are our representatives in the halls of power. And their job is to ask substantive questions and get real answers. They're not there to be perpetual critics or naysayers with a recurring role or partisan bullies. If you want to raise your profile by staging viral confrontations with public figures, do it on your own time. Get a podcast or be a regular pundit on MSNBC. But if you want to be a journalist and prattle on about credibility, why don't you start by trying to restore your own? And keep those rings in your purse and the Vaseline, put that away. That's the angle. Coming up, our Friday Follies segment, the fired House chaplain is now reinstated by Paul Ryan, stoking a political firestorm, and university students petitioning to change their school's nickname because guess what?
The headquarters, Ahmed Henry. President George H.W. Bush was released from the hospital today. The former president spent the last 13 days at Houston Methodist Hospital fighting an infection that had spread to his blood. Family spokesperson Jim McGrath said on Twitter, doctors report the 41st president is doing well and happy to be returning home. South Korean President Moon Jae-in will visit the White House towards the end of the month. This will be the third time he and President Trump have met. The two will, of course, discuss the recent historic meetings between President Moon and North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, as well as the upcoming meeting between Kim and Mr. Trump. The U.S. Navy is bringing back its second fleet 7 years after it was shut down. The new fleet will keep watch over the East Coast and North Atlantic. Admiral John Richardson, Chief of Naval Operations, said the decision to bring back the fleet was due to, quote, great power competition. But he didn't name any nations in particular. However, the Pentagon's new national defense strategy identifies Russia and China as the biggest threats. We're just getting word, in fact, that two top advisors to former FBI Director James Comey have resigned, including Lisa Page. I'll have more coming up next with Shannon Bream when we go live for Fox News at Night. Ahmed Henry. Now back to the Ingram Angle.
It's time for our Friday Folly segment, and we can start with the case of the reinstated House chaplain, Pat Conroy. He was fired last week, and now he's back. To discuss the political fallout with some new information, new reporting, we're joined by Fox News contributor and New York Times bestselling author Raymond Arroyo. Okay, this has my head spinning. First of all, most people don't think about the House chaplain. Like a House chaplain, how offensive can a House chaplain be? But he was kind of pushed to the side, retiring.
Well, Paul Ryan asked him to retire. He submitted his resignation. Paul then said this on the floor. Listen to this. It was at a press conference, rather.
Father Conroy's a good man, and I'm grateful for his many years of service to the House. This had nothing to do, this is not about politics or prayers. It was about pastoral services. And a number of our members felt like the pastoral services were not being adequately served or offered. And so I made a decision on behalf of the House.
Now, I spoke to members, Laura. It started with 4 last week. I spoke to another 5 or 6 this week. The people who actually went and complained to Paul Ryan, they said they liked the pastor, but he was a little distant. In one-on-one counseling, he didn't really give them that pastoral touch they wanted.
Can you give us some specifics here?
Well, there was one woman who had a difficult family situation. She went to him. He was very cold.
And didn't he say something like, go to your home?
Well, he referred her to her home pastor.
Go to your home pastor.
And she ended up going to the Senate Senate chaplain. He also didn't organize any real big events, like after the shooting in the ball field. There were no events for members. Speakers didn't appear with regularity to talk about the spiritual life. Anyway, they complained of Paul Ryan. That is why he asked for the man's resignation.
Why is he back? Okay, we get all that. Why is he back?
He's back because he complained. He went to the media and he claimed that Paul Ryan's chief of staff, Jonathan Burks, said, maybe it's time that we had a chaplain that wasn't Catholic. I've spoken to a number of members, people in leadership. Turns out what he really said was, we're going to have an open process where we look at all denominations. So this is not a case of anti-Catholic bias.
But Paul Ryan actually does something that a lot of us were saying it's about time. Apparently, this guy was not all that popular. Okay, we just wasn't. No. And then he backtracks. If you're going to make a decision, make a decision. Don't.
Well, I think he's reluctant. He's reluctant to drag the House.
Happy. The left is all happy about this. They feel like they got their guy back in, even though nobody thinks about this.
Well,
but he's more
Pelosi and DeLauro.
He's more of a liberal.
Pelosi and DeLauro and many of their in the Democratic caucus, they were willing to have a huge floor fight.
So Paul Ryan backs down from a fight. I mean, God bless him. I don't know. He's on his way up, but I don't.
Dividing them.
Okay, so you're always rescuing people from the wrath of Laura.
I am trying to give you the honest goods here. You just want me to take a hard side here.
Because Paul Ryan basically ushered him out. He had a great years of service, and now he's back. It's like, so everybody can complain, they're fired, and complain, they come back. Okay, fine. Okay. Let's go to the extremely offensive George Washington University mascot or motto.
Their mascot and their nickname are the Colonials.
Ooh,
students.
Colonials.
200 students have filed a petition. They write, we as students, faculty, and staff of George Washington
have nothing better to do than to complain about a mascot.
That's right. And they go on to say,
look at the cute mascot. It's adorable.
The use of the Colonials, no matter how innocent the intention is received, is extremely offensive to the nation and the world at large.
Go study.
They say, the historically negatively charged figure of colonials has a deep connection to colonialization.
I look at that one. I love when he's pointing.
It glorifies the. Could you quiet? Let me read this thing. It glorifies the act of systemic oppression. They say.
I'm feeling.
So they want it out. Here's my problem with this. The Colonials, it's named after George Washington. Of course you have Colonials. It's representing the Continental Congress. Yeah, those are the people who fought for the rights of kids to file silly petitions like this. They need a sensitivity course on colonialism and what it meant in the American context.
I'm still back to
means liberty and freedom.
I'm still back to Dartmouth College being the Indians. They renamed my college the Big Green. What the heck is the Big Green? I don't even know what that is.
It's like them wanting to remove the leprechaun from Notre Dame. They say it's a racial inappropriate mask.
By the way, I petitioned all the living Indian chiefs. 83% in the whole country wanted the Indian symbol back. College didn't care. I did that as a student journalist, causing trouble back then. All right, Kanye West, real quick. Kanye West is not being played on a hip-hop station that I know you listen to. Right next to your Sinatra oldies
Every time I'm in Detroit, I listen to 105 The Bombs.
Oh, please.
And
they can't stand. They hate Kanye.
Listen to this is DJ Biggs and Shay Shay. Listen.
Say that again.
Do you think as a show we should band together and not play any of Kanye West's throwback songs?
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. And this is probably going to get some people upset because they like Kanye. They're a fan of Kanye, and I get that.
So you want us to stop playing?
But I'm okay with the small platform that we do have to not continue to give him a platform that is spewing things that are reckless.
A lot of anger out there. And this is all about those comments he made that 400 years of slavery. But remember, he went on to say, it sounds like a choice, but then he said, it's like we're mentally imprisoned.
That's what we know.
That was the point of what he meant. And he's being sidelined. His music is being boycotted. And we'll see where this ends. But free thought,
here's my prediction. Kanye will be bigger than ever. Bigger than ever.
The next Roseanne, the Roseanne of rap?
Well, Kanye will be bigger than ever. Okay. And it's only because he dares to think for himself. Raymond Arroyo, fantastic, as always. And up next, Trump brings down the House at the NRA's annual meeting and makes some news. Did you know it? We'll discuss it next. President Trump addressed the NRA for the 4th year in a row at its annual meeting today in Dallas. Needless to say, he was not subtle.
Your Second Amendment rights are under siege, but they will never, ever be under siege as long as I'm your president. Democrats and liberals in Congress want to disarm law-abiding Americans. At the same time, they're releasing dangerous criminal aliens and savage gang members onto our streets. We believe that our liberty is a gift from our Creator and that no government can ever take it away. We strongly believe in allowing highly trained teachers to carry concealed weapons. There's no sign more inviting to a mass killer than a sign that declares this school is a gun-free zone. Come in and take us. We will never give up our freedom. Americans are born free. We will live free, and we will die free.
Well, despite the warm welcome, NRA members became a little nervous when Trump seemed open to some gun control measures after Parkland, Florida, and the horrible shooting there in February. And some are upset that the administration hasn't pushed gun rights bills, such as that concealed carry reciprocity legislation. Let's get reaction from Matt Schlapp, chairman of the American Conservative Union, who attended President Trump's speech today, along with Philippe Reines, is a former senior advisor to Hillary Clinton. Great to see both of you. All right, Matt, you were in the room as this was going down today. And it was a rock star welcome. It's such a tedious phrase overused, but they love President Trump, and he made a little news today. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, the one thing about President Trump is he doesn't have a long-standing voting record, and he's willing to look at these issues afresh, which sometimes makes people nervous. And in the room today, he talked about the idea that we have to confront these problems of violence in our society, and we have to look at our laws. And that's what he said on bump stocks, and on other questions, he's talked about the background check. And look, it makes some people in the room uneven, but I think you're right, Laura. Overall, the people who are members of the NRA are just so thankful to have a president who's standing up for the Second Amendment. So I'd say overall a rousing reaction.
The House Intel Committee, Congressman Eric Swalwell, unloaded on guns and gun control, and he said something about confiscation, which made people concerned. We should ban possession of military-style semi-automatic assault weapons. We should buy back such weapons from all who choose to abide by the law. And we should criminally prosecute any who choose to defy it by keeping their weapons. So, Philippe, it seems like people always will jump to, well, you just want to take our guns away. And Democrats say, no, we want just smarter laws. We want gun control legislation that's smart and common sense. But he goes to confiscation here. What do you think about that?
Well, I understand watching President Trump where he conflates all sorts of different things, where it conflates immigration and the Second Amendment. But the truth of the matter is that the Second Amendment is not under siege. The Supreme Court is safely conservative. The thing he's been most successful about has been in conservatives in the court, on the court. The Second Amendment is not going anywhere. And while he's speaking to the NRA, polling of gun owners on the whole actually show that people are, even in the light of Parkland, they are open to regulations, whether it's in terms of Eric Swalwell, bump stock and people stalking and domestic violence.
He's talking about Australian-style gun confiscation, though. And I think a lot of people on the left, I mean, you read the comments, let's get rid of all guns. A lot of the people who are rightfully outraged after Parkland said, this is ridiculous. We don't need these guns. And there are, hundreds of millions of guns.
I think the frustration is among people like Eric Swalwell and people like me, not that I'm agreeing with that particular suggestion, is that the Second Amendment's not going anywhere. We're not trying to take everyone's guns, but we don't want Parkland to happen again. And there has got to be something in between those two things. And
Parkland, we know all the things that happened leading up to that.
Well, everything that led up to that was, but also everything he did was legal.
Oh, 98%.
He bought a legal weapon.
Yeah, he did, but we had multiple warnings to the FBI, and Matt, you can comment on this. Multiple warnings to the FBI. The sheriff, obviously himself under siege for his handling of all this, and as it was happening when people were sitting outside instead of rushing into the building. But I think when you looked at what happened today, President Trump was talking about the NRA being under siege. It has blood on its hands. I mean, we even had Jim Comey on Wednesday in Miami. He was doing a book event, and he said the NRA sells fear to gun owners. He said he doesn't like to get into politics, but he was adamant that the NRA is part of the problem.
Well, they can't have it both ways, Laura. They can't the congressman can't put out a tweet saying he wants to do semi-auto confiscation of guns, and then on the other hand, say, like Philippe is saying, well, it's not under attack. I think what Philippe is trying to say, yeah, the Second Amendment is in the Constitution, but Democrats want to take their ability to regulate our ability to own guns to the max. And here's the thing of the politics of this. I was in the White House when the last semi-auto ban expired. You know, the Democrats talked about wanting to have a semi-auto ban, but, you know, there were no bills when it expired because they realized the politics of gun confiscation are terrible. So they jump on these issues when there's these terrible tragedies, but when it really comes down to the legislation, like when Barack Obama had a supermajority in the Senate and a big majority in the House, he didn't get it done.
All right, guys, thanks to you both for being here tonight. And the week ends on a fantastic high note for the president and the economy. Details on how he's defying all the naysayers on this issue next. Here's a great way to wrap up the week. Some fantastic news on the economy. Unemployment dropped to 3.9% in April. That's the lowest in 18 years. And we added 24,000 manufacturing jobs last month. That's an amazing increase. Now it's up to 304,000 manufacturing jobs since December 2016, right before Trump took office. Now, the rallying Trump economy, I guess that's news to a media obsessed with all things stormy. But the reality is, Trump is proving himself to be the jobs president. And the jobs he's helping create are diverse jobs, and they're having a major impact on the economy. Defying conventional wisdom, the president is bringing back blue-collar jobs. Yeah, America is making actual products again. And remember when the experts said none of this would ever happen?
A lot of these manufacturing jobs, a lot of what we're talking about over time, those industries are not coming back.
Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, they've lost millions of manufacturing jobs that frankly are never coming back.
When somebody says he's going to bring all these jobs back, well, how exactly are you going to do that? What are you going to do? There's no answer to it.
Yeah, here's the answer. Obama was dead wrong. Trump was right. And by the way, now Obama's top advisor to get out of this pickle they're in is trying to suggest that the former President Obama deserves credit for what Trump has accomplished.
The breaking news that we just had moments ago were the new job numbers, the lowest in anybody's memory, 3.9% unemployment rate. It's been 15 months of Donald Trump's presidency. Do you give him credit for that?
Look, I think we have to look at it over a longer horizon than that.
Oh, of course. It's all Obama's doing. It's all because of the things he did. Let's analyze the Trump economy with Andy Pudzer. He's the former CEO of the parent company of Hardee's and Carl's Jr., and he's the author of the new book, The Capitalist Comeback. All right, Andy, I love the fact that the old Obama folks are trying to say, well, look at what Obama was handed. He was handed a economy that had been through hell, and it was coming back, and he added all these jobs, and Trump waltzes in, and yeah, it's going well, but it was going well under Obama.
Yeah, like everything that was bad that happened in the Obama administration was George W. Bush's fault. Everything good, apparently, that happens after his presidency is due to Obama's credit. Look, there's never been a president of the United States who was subjected to a more concerted effort by the left and the media to discredit his economic accomplishments, which is one of the reasons I wrote the book, was so people would have the ammunition not only to defend President Trump's economic accomplishments, but to explain how really his capitalist policies have brought back this great economic resurgence. This isn't the Democratic Party of John Kennedy or even a Bill Clinton. This is the Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders party. It's been taken over by socialists and progressives, and they can't let it appear that Donald Trump is being successful because it puts the lie to the notion that Obama's progressive policies were in the country's best interest. They were not.
Yeah, well, Hillary basically admitted that the other night when she said that the whole capitalist thing might have, I guess, hurt her campaign. The party's moved so far to the left that it's left America. Andy, we only have limited time, but when Obama said back in 2016, how does he expect to bring these jobs back? It's not going to happen. Well, he's bringing them back because he's incentivizing companies to repatriate their capital with lower taxes, what Obama never wanted to do, dropping the corporate tax rate and not penalizing corporations for hauling all that cash back home. Apple's going to bring back manufacturing, all these big companies. It happens by actually not treating business as the enemy.
You look at every report on GDP by quarter during the Obama administration, and the problem was the reason GDP growth was so slow was because businesses weren't investing. You look what's happened since President Trump's been in office. 15 months, businesses are investing. We went from an economy where workers couldn't find good-paying jobs to an economy where the biggest problem businesses are facing is they can't find enough employees to fill the good-paying jobs. That's the capitalist comeback.
And you know what I love also is that in the blue-collar jobs, like the railroad jobs, you're seeing a $25,000 signing bonus for employees. Wages are beginning to tick up like 2%. We needed that to happen for the American worker. Wages need to start rising. Andy, love the book. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. We'll have you back for sure. And we're going to close this out when we come back. Don't go away. We'll be right back.